Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Set Piece. Myself, Robert Grieve, as ever with me, Mr. Bill Leckie. You're a bit of pain this morning, Bill.
A bit of pain.
Wee bit of pain. He's had problems with his shoulder.
I'm going for surgery, Robert.
Surgery soon. But we're here
Get
for...
the chip taken off.
But we'll never mind about that. People don't like to hear this. What about the surgery that's been going on at the clubs around?
Oh, I see what
I've
you
done
did
there?
there. That was brilliant.
Around Scottish football this week. We're a couple of days on from the transfer window closing, and I tell you what, there still seems to be so much noise out there about what did and didn't happen. Talk to me about Celtic first, Bill. What has not happened there?
What has not happened is they didn't get the players that Brendan Rodgers says he wanted. Monday was a remarkable day. I mean, you talk about who had a good transfer deadline day and who didn't. Celtic went in with a pile of money, came out with a bigger pile of money, but somehow with a weaker squad.
I thought you were going to say a pile of something else there.
No, that's what their fans would tell you after Sunday at Ibrox. But somehow came out with more money but a weaker squad at the end of Monday night, which I found remarkable.
And what's more remarkable, they actually came out with a bigger pile of money.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
bizarre.
They've I think about £13 million more than they actually went into the window with, which is remarkable. Can you understand the fans being so upset, being so? Maybe you speak about fans on here often about how you're maybe kind of sometimes talk about how they kind of maybe feel a bit entitled. Stuff
a bit entitled sometimes.
But at the same time, I've got a lot of sympathy for guys who are maybe forking out a lot of money right now,
absolutely.
And they've seen what's happened, especially at Celtic. We'll come to Rangers in a minute, but and the others. But Celtic fans, have they got a right to be annoyed?
I think the entitled one during this window has been Brendan Rodgers. He's pointed a lot of fingers at the board. Even after Sunday, he comes into the press room at Ibrox, straight away says, that game was terrible, but that's what you get when you don't sign good players. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you've got Dyson Maeda, 38 goals last year, you've got Callum McGregor, you've got there's a Freudian, £11 million Ali Engels, you've got Rio Hatate, you've got Carter Vickers, you've got Kasper Schmeichel, and he's saying, and Kieran Tierney, and he's saying, if we don't sign quality players, you get a terrible game. Well, he's got good players, and it's his job to manage them. If he gets better players in, and he gets competition for those players, great, but I think he's overplayed his hand during this
window.
You think so? I think he does need...
I can understand why he's so annoyed.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's deflecting from the fact that, as we've talked about before, since the turn of the year, Celtic have gone, ever since Kyogo left, whether that's the reason or not, Celtic have gone backwards in terms of quality and standards, and he has to get them back to those standards, and so far it's not happening.
Yeah, but if you're losing quality players and you're not replacing them with quality, is the manager not within his rights, whether it's Brendan Rodgers or anyone else, to actually point that out? And I agree with you. When you look at the European games, I think there's no doubt for me whatsoever, I was at both games home and away, that Celtic should have won that tie. Yep. Regardless of who else have brought in, regardless of what hasn't happened, regardless of how frustrated Brendan Rodgers is or has any right to be, Celtic should have gone through in that tie. But at the same time, if you park that for a second, Celtic are weaker now, come out the window than they were getting into it. So is the manager not got every right? And he's not obliterated folk. He's maybe not gone to town for me on certain individuals as he could have done. So I think to a certain extent you can understand how frustrated he is, and I can understand that he's been painting that picture. He's not going to speak for another few days. In fact, it'll be next week before we hear from Brendan Rodgers, which is probably not a bad thing from the point of view that if Brendan Rodgers was in a press conference tomorrow or today, I think you hear a lot from him that the Celtic board probably wouldn't want to hear. Yeah. So it's probably a good thing that we're in an international break and there's going to be a week or so before you actually hear from him, because I suspect he will have calmed down to a certain extent. But I don't think anyone can really point any fingers at Brendan Rodgers in terms of what he's been saying. You can point fingers at him in terms of not getting a tune out of the players.
That's exactly why.
But at the same time, that's
his job.
But it's almost two different arguments right now.
Well, they are two different arguments in as much as he is right that the Celtic board took a massive gamble, which we've both written about, a massive gamble that they would get to the Champions League and then they would bring players in. Now, even then, would they have brought players in? I don't know whether they would have got them, whether they wouldn't have got them. But within that, I don't think Brendan Rodgers, since the turn of 2025, has got nearly enough out of his big players. And if you look at, for instance, the big signing they made in January to come in the summer was Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney has kind of hit the ground
Well, maybe come to him in a wee minute,
Trotting
because we'll be
rather than running,
We'll be talking about Scotland later on as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. We'll maybe come, but you're right. That's
know,
part of the issue, isn't it?
part of the issue.
That's a position where Celtic are weaker,
Yeah.
arguably, than they were
Yeah.
pre-window. Where Greg Taylor, and the way that he played for Celtic, was almost like an unsung hero. Was probably at a certain level, wage-wise and everything else. He was wanting to go to the next
Energy.
level, but the way he plays,
Yeah.
in terms of coming into the pitch. Kieran Tierney doesn't do that anymore.
No, he's not doing it.
He didn't do it his first spell. He didn't do it at Arsenal. He's certainly not going to do it now. And for me, there's clearly fitness issues.
Absolutely.
Again, we'll come to him in a minute, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
but generally, you're right. It's where Celtic are probably weaker, or they are weaker than they were previously.
But they still have enough good players that they should be beating Karat Almaty, and with the best one in the world, they should have been beating Rangers on Sunday. Now, Rangers, I thought, lifted their game pretty well.
Yeah.
It's probably as well as they've played, but they still weren't very good.
No.
You know, and Celtic should still be beating them with the players they have.
Yeah, but I genuinely say, I think it's probably two arguments. I think you can differentiate between the job that he's doing in terms of picking the team and coaching the team, and the players that he's got, and the quality that's going out of the building and being replaced by the quality or lack of it that's come in. If you look at the players Inamura's come in, Brendan Rodgers very, very quickly made it very clear that he felt he wasn't going to be a regular player for Celtic. The guy's not a 17-year-old, 18-year-old. That's a guy in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Shin Yamada, another one, came in
week on Sunday when he came on.
Just not the kind of player that's ready to play for Celtic every week.
Yeah.
The jury's maybe out on one or two others.
Yeah.
Players that have come in.
Well, Balakwisha came in on Sunday and played from the start, and he never went past a full-back once.
He was thrown into the deep end. I think if you're a fan, or if you're Brendan Rodgers or the coaching staff, I think you're prepared to cut him a bit of slack. I agree with you. The fact that he didn't take James Tavernier on at any point in the game, take him on the outside, would kind of, for a guy that's meant to be his game, would kind of set alarm bells ringing a little bit, but he was just in the door.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably prepared to cut him a bit of slack. I mean, Oliver Benjamin Nygren's come in pre-season. I watched him. He was very good. He's gone off the boil a little bit, but at the same time, I also think he's been shifted around in various positions, and I don't think that's helped him.
No.
You know, so there's maybe mitigating circumstances here with certain players, but I think just generally, the fact that they let Adam Ida go before actually getting anyone else in the building was staggering.
Yeah.
They didn't let Yang go, whereas all summer it looked as though Yang was going to go. They hold him back from a move to England. He's still there. He's still going to...
And yet they've signed yet another winger.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. But they've not signed a right-sided winger who comes in his left-hand side.
No.
As I mentioned this yesterday.
The straight replacement for Kuhn.
Straight replacement for Kuhn. So Patrick Roberts did the job. Years Brendan Rodgers. See Brendan Rodgers' first spell.
Yeah.
I mean that's the kind of position that's vital for that team, and they don't have it.
No.
You know, so I can really understand Brendan Rodgers' frustration. I'll be fascinated to hear what he says when he next speaks, because I think again, if we spoke to him this morning, I think he'd be furious. I think he'd be livid. I don't think he'd be able to contain that. Yeah. But I wonder if by the time he's in front of a camera that he'll maybe have calmed down, because essentially there's not really any point in him throwing his toys at the pram right now. Nope. I don't think he's going to go. I think there was a bit of chat on Monday night, maybe on social media, people are thinking, and actually ironically, Brendan Rodgers up until now has been hell-bent on putting it across that he would not walk away from Celtic.
Yeah.
Right? Because coming back was all about appeasing the fans and getting back on side with the fans.
Having made a mistake
having made that, well, having
a mistake in the way he did it.
Yeah, in basically the kind of situation he got himself into with fans. But now, if on Tuesday morning Celtic fans woke up to news that Brendan Rodgers had resigned from Celtic, I don't think a single Celtic fan would have blamed them. I don't think anyone would have had a go at him and said he's walked out on us. He said he wasn't leaving. He said he was here for 200%. I think most Celtic fans would look at it and go, I can understand that. I get that, and that's astonishing.
I am fascinated when I listen to Brendan Rodgers. I think he's a very clever man with his use of language, and he does very cleverly shift responsibility for things sometimes. I think if you look at Sunday's...
Most managers do.
Yeah, but he's some of them are very blatant about it, and it gets them into trouble. Brendan's very clever about it, and I do think, and fans aren't daft though. Fans don't button up the back and like so on Monday morning into the wee cafe again to run by a couple of Celtic fans, father and son, and they both said the same thing. He's talking nonsense. He needs to get more out of these players. They can see it. He needs to get more out of guys who last season were running over the top of everybody else. Why is Dyson Maida now hopeless in front of goal? You know, why is Callum McGregor looking a wee half-yard shorter? Why is Engels not playing well? That's the manager's job to manage.
I think those are fair questions. I think those are absolutely fair questions.
Why were they so negative?
In the Derby game.
Oh, my goodness me. I mean, 508 passes in the game. I reckon half of them went backwards.
Yeah.
And he puts it down to a kind of, and again, he's saying, well, if you look up from the back and you don't see forward players who you think are going to be on the front foot, you become risk averse and you play the ball backwards. But again, why has this situation happened where his forward players now have lost so much confidence?
Yeah.
Because they're still good players.
How bad was that game?
Oh my goodness me.
Wow.
Forks in your eyes. It was, I mean, it had the potential to be a cracking game if they both played as badly as they've been, as they had during the week. It could have been 3 each or something because of the amount of mistakes. But they cancelled each other out from very early on. There was no football. Sometimes you come away from a game that's not very good, but you go, what about that shot that rattled the bar? What about that save the goalkeeper had? That was hee-haw, Robert. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. What about the Rangers then? Obviously, they've done a bit of business themselves. They've spent big money. I mean, if one thing the Rangers fans are unhappy about right now, it can't be the amount of money that's been spent on players. They've done a bit of business. Russell Martin has been backed financially.
Absolutely.
Behind the scenes there. You're not too sure about one or two of the signings, are you?
I am not too sure is not the way I would put it. I am baffled by the Youssef Chermiti signing. Now, Cyril Dessers got it in the neck for the couple of years he was there because of the amount of chances he missed. He'd be a guy who needs 4 chances to score 1 goal, but he still scored 20 goals a season in the last couple of years, and he probably should have scored 40 goals a season. But he was a willing runner. He proved himself as being able to score goals in games, right? Youssef Chermiti, I don't think has scored a senior goal in 4 years. I think he's got something. I don't know what's he got in his career. 15, 16 goals across 5, 6 seasons at Sporting and at Everton. And there is nothing for me. Now, look at the amount of deals, Robert, that went through during the window of loan with a condition to buy or an obligation to buy or an option to buy. For me, if you're going to go for a player like Chermiti, who's got so much to prove, you take him on loan, you take on a portion of his wages, and there's an option to buy if he does well at the end of it. To go out and pay £8 million plus add-ons. Now, Everton paid, I think, 11 million for him, and he's started 3 games, I think, right? For Rangers to pay 8 million for a guy in that situation does not strike me. Now, okay, they get 10 million in for Earman, which I think was phenomenal money for a guy, again, who's not...
For a guy who didn't want to play for him?
Aye. They get 4 million more for 4.5 deaths, so that's 15 million quid in, great. So they might go, well, 8 million's all right, it's only half that money. I think you could have got the guy on loan for nothing with an option to buy, if he did the job.
Yeah, arguably. Listen, on the face of it, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what you're saying. It does sound to me like a real kind of pot of money that they probably didn't need to spend. But at the same time, there's guys at that club getting paid a lot of money behind the scenes in recruitment. They pinpoint these potential signings who could be gems. Like
they've pinpointed, Max Aarons and Joe Rothwell.
Right, okay.
And,
yeah, that's a fair
Nasser
point.
Giga and
that's a fair point, but if it's your job to sign someone who you think... We're talking about Celtic down the years, right? About potentially how about their model, their business model. Celtic more than Rangers. About how... And it's the mistake that Celtic have often made, or the big argument that Brendan Rodgers has always had, is about what level did you sign at to then sell at.
Are you signing potential?
So Celtic, more than anyone, years back would sign players at 2 million, 2.5, expecting to sell them for 10.
Yeah, your Van Dijks and your...
Right, but there was very few Van Dijks. There weren't all Van Dijks,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, and the argument for me was always, well, that's a bigger risk and a harder thing to do than signing someone at £8 million and selling them for 25.
You think you're going to get 25 back for Chermiti?
I'm not saying that, but my point is, if you sign someone for £2 million, you're not selling them for 25. You're not. For me, the bigger outlay you have, the better chance you have of that player being a success. Now, I'm not saying that this guy is... I do agree with you to a certain extent that Chermiti does look as though they have paid over the odds for him. But I find it very hard, if you're a fan of a club, to criticise for that. If you're behind the scenes at Rangers and you've done your scouting and you've done your due diligence on players and you think this guy potentially could be sold for a lot of money, that's a better use of money for me to sign someone at that level than signing somebody at £2 million.
It's not his level. It's the amount of money. It's that you could have taken him on loan with an option to buy if he did the business.
Well, maybe Everton weren't prepared to let that deal happen. Maybe Everton will say, no, you want him, you need to pay for him. This is the going rate.
Then you don't have to pay. Then you go, no, you're all right then.
We're an English Premier League club. You want a striker from us. The going rate's £8 million. That's the starting point. Ben Doak left Liverpool to go to Bournemouth. £25 million. He played 15 games for Liverpool, 12, 15 games for Liverpool. The going rate's £25 million.
They could have got Patrick Bamford for nothing.
Well,
from their own sort of sister club.
You think Patrick Bamford would have been a better signing?
Than Chermiti? Yes.
Well,
no, he's a guy with an injury history. He's a guy who's been a bit chocolate over the years.
Exactly.
But I think he would have been a better bet than £8 million for a 21-year-old that hasn't scored a goal for 4 years.
Listen, time will tell. It may well. I'm not sitting here saying right now, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not sitting here right now saying that this guy is going to be a rip-roaring success at Rangers. I think the odds are probably stacked against him because he hasn't played so much football, because he hasn't played so many games. And I think the vast majority of people look at it and think, well, that does seem to be paying over the odds. But I'm just saying to you, a club paying that kind of money, I think you would like to think that that's a better bet than just maybe spending the odd couple of million here and there. Or a loan signing. And I tell you what, I'm fed up signing loan player after loan player at any club. For me, that's not the answer.
Well,
that's never the answer. Short-term fixes.
Put it this way, Robert. The £8 million would probably have got you, as I think it probably did for Ajax, Kasper Dolberg. That's £8 million well spent.
Not necessarily. For me, Celtic had done a deal for Dolberg at £5 million. That's about the player wanting to come to Scotland. That's been the problem. I don't mean this to defend any club, especially like Celtic, but that's what they're finding. That's what they have found. It's players not want to come to Glasgow.
Yeah.
It's players not want to come to Scottish football. Dolberg, the deal was done. They were getting him for £5 million. At last minute, he goes, do you know what? No chance. I'm not coming to Scotland.
We talk about this with our team with St Mirren, right? Look at the signings Stephen Robinson makes. There's a reason why people end up in Scottish football, right? And it's generally not because, unless you're a Matt O'Reilly, for instance, who's a guy who has decided this is the great stepping stone for me, and it works out brilliantly for him. Celtic bring him in for $1 million, they sell him.
Most players that come to Rangers Celtic in mid-20s are coming as a stepping stone.
Yeah,
but almost all of them.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is a reason why people end up here. If Chermiti was good enough, somebody in the English Premier League would have taken him. Leeds United would have taken him. Arguably.
Yeah, listen, it's a fair point. I'm not sitting here saying that he's guaranteed to be a success. But I'm also sitting here, in all honesty, having not seen very much about him at all. So, truth be told,
but that's the point.
Yeah, but just because we haven't, that's not to say the guy.
But he hasn't done anything. He generally isn't playing.
Yeah, but you.
So, for instance, I can't have an opinion on Derek Cornelius because I haven't watched him play. But he's a Canadian internationalist with 55 caps who's playing at a high level, right? And you think, okay, there's a signing that you think you can see it. You know, you can see it. You can see it with, for instance, when they signed Joe Rothwell, you say, well, I know what he's done. I've watched him for, 6, 7, 8 years. You can see what he's all about. Whether it turns out he's good enough when he arrives is a different thing. But nobody has seen, Youssef Chermiti has disappeared off the radar. Yeah. Everton. And my issue isn't whether the guy is good enough to score goals or not. It's the fact that you charge in and think £8 million.
But then, honestly,
it's madness for me.
You look at most transfers these days and it's madness for me. Some of the fees that are going around, it's baffling, But anyway, what about the result of the weekend for me? As we said, we touched on there earlier, the derby was appalling to watch. Neither team came out with any glory whatsoever in terms of the performance. But at the same time, for me, it was a result that was the least that Russell Martin could get to kind of take the pressure off him. Now, at the same time, the pressure hasn't come off him.
No. Well, you and I, most of the press box had emptied on Sunday, and Robert and I were still there. And we're watching Russell Martin, waiting for all his players coming off as the players got a bit of a round of applause for the fans, the ones that were still left. and they all came off and he shook their hands. And very, very noticeably, when he turned to go down the tunnel, boos all around the stadium.
Yeah, the fans are still far from convinced,
No.
putting it mildly.
Yeah.
But
They're just not having him.
They're not having them,
They're not
right?
having him.
But at the same time, they weren't many of them weren't having them when he first came into the club anyway. So they've been kind of waiting to pounce for me, right? But at the same time, the way the team's been playing and the issues that there have been in terms of the signings who've come in who haven't done a job so far hasn't helped them whatsoever. But at the same time, what I did think from that performance, albeit the game was pretty dire, was that the team were playing for him, they were running for him, they were putting the yards in for him.
But they were never going to win a game of football playing that way because they didn't create anything.
They never created anything. But the signs that were there for me that they were at least kind of on the same page. You know, there's been the issue behind the scenes with Nicolas Raskin.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a second.
Oh, this issue behind the scene with Nico Raskin, and for me, I felt he would be let go or on loan to get him kind of out the building. But it seems now that there's a bit of respite there. There's going to be a kind of maybe a mutual understanding between them that what's been happening behind the scenes and the situation that has developed has to be resolved.
See, my feeling is, Robert, right, you broke the story on Saturday that Raskin was being left out of the squad completely, and there was
the story. No, to be fair, the story had been bubbling around that had been happening. There was an element to it that I kind of brought into it. Yeah.
Okay. However, the feeling is when a manager does that, and it's on the eve of the transfer window closing, is that the player's finished. What do you think it does to Russell Martin's grip on the place that come the transfer window, the player's still there?
I don't know about that in all honesty, but I think
like how easy will it be for him to reintegrate that player?
Yeah, I don't think that will be a problem. I don't think there's been any real personal kind of serious personal kind of friction between Russell Martin and Nicolas Raskin. I know that might sound odd, but I think it's more to be doing with the fact that Nicolas Raskin, for me, hasn't been doing the job that Russell Martin has wanted him to do on the pitch, right? There's been a change in the system at Rangers, and Nico Raskin has been asked to do a specific job, and he's not been taking those instructions onto the park. Okay. For me, that's what's going to happen. Behind the scenes, he's a confident boy. He's someone who's got a high opinion of himself, rightly or wrongly, and I think behind the scenes, that's maybe not come across as well as he thinks it maybe could have done. Now, throw all that into the melting pot and it creates an issue. But I don't think it's an issue that can't be retrieved. Well, I don't think it's an issue that can't be resolved. I think it's maybe a case of them both sitting down, if it hasn't happened already, and I'm saying, listen, you think this is where you're at, this is where I think you're at, where you are at, and I think this is, if you do this and I do this, I think we can have a mutual understanding that's beneficial for Nico Raskin as a player and also Rangers as a team. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that Rangers are a better team with Nico Raskin in it.
And there's my point.
However, sorry, Bill. Sorry. But he has to be following the instructions of the manager.
Well, yes, he does.
The Rangers fans and others might point to what's the job that Russell Martin's done so far and say, well, Nico Raskin's right to question this and question that. No, he's not. If you're a Rangers player, would there been any Rangers player that questioned Walter Smith?
No.
Not one.
No.
Right? Now, people might say, well, Russell Martin hasn't earned that respect that Walter had from everyone, which is a fair argument. But at the same time, we've all had bosses, right, who have asked you to do certain things at certain times and you've maybe disagreed with it, right? And you maybe voice your opinion and go, well, really, why are you asking me to do this? And you go, well, this is why I'm asking you to do this. At the end of the day, you do the job. At the end of the day, whatever job you're in, whether you're a painter or decorator, whether you're a taxi driver, whether you work in an office, no matter what, there's a line of command, right? And it annoys me slightly. If in any other line of work, if your boss asks you to do something, you do it.
Of course you do.
Whether you think it's right or wrong, I'm not saying you do anything he asks you to do, right? For certain things.
No, but good bosses know the limits anyway, know the boundaries.
But there's got to be a level of respect there. And if Nico Raskin or any other player has been asked to do a certain job in the team and he doesn't do it, and it happens again and he doesn't do it, and then behind the scenes he's maybe voicing his opinion in a way that crosses a line and he's maybe rubbing certain folk up the wrong way, I don't think it does the manager any good whatsoever with the other players or that individual to let that slide.
However,
because it would be a real sign of weakness if that was happening more than once, and the manager, in this case Russell Martin, was to take a step back and go, well, do you know what, he's our best player, so I'm going to let it slide. Now, I know that often the best player at a club does get more of a say than others.
Fergie did this a lot,
right?
With Cantona, for instance.
But Nico Raskin isn't Barry Ferguson, or a player. You know what I mean? He's a good player, and he's a Belgian international. And I'm not saying he is arguably the best midfielder at Rangers, but he's not Zidane. You know, he's not somewhere who he hasn't earned the right to have that big opinion of himself.
Russell Martin isn't Walter Smith, right? Walter Smith would never have let that get public. He would have dealt with it internally in his own way. Raskin would either have played or he'd have been out the door.
But when he's not playing or he's not picked, and it's coming out, and that's the other thing. Certain things have been coming out from within Rangers. You know, that's not helped Russell Martin. So I don't know. I've actually got a certain appreciation for Russell Martin. He's actually been willing, because he's been asked about the situation at Rangers as well, and people have taken it as an arrogance that he's been saying how, well, listen, Rangers have changed managers before, and he's kind of made it clear that he feels pretty safe in his position, right?
Which is cool.
Which is fine, you know. And certain people are taking that as an arrogance and
it's just honesty.
It's an honesty, but it's the truth as well. Rangers can't keep continuing to sack managers. And if they're not going to progress or get any better, if after 2 months they go, do you know what? We don't agree with this, get him out and let's get another one in. If Rangers are going to progress, there has to be an understanding that there has to be change. And for me, there has to be change in that dressing room. The mentality of that dressing room, the culture in that dressing room. There'll be certain people who have been in that dressing room in the last number of years who have been saying all this, and then when this has been happening, they're kind of saying, oh, Russell Martin this or Russell Martin that. That culture has to change. And it has to be changed by the manager. It can't be changed by the players.
And that culture goes back a long way, because you go back 20 years to when Paul Le Guen basically couldn't manage the club because players weren't having him.
Yeah, but there's a difference between that, because that issue was Barry Ferguson challenging what Russell Martin thought was success. Paul Le Guen, was success. The Inverness game where I think it was a 1-1 draw, and Paul Le Guen was basically patting everyone on the back and saying, and Barry was making the point at that point, it was like, wait a minute, we're Rangers, this isn't great. That's not really what's been happening at Rangers, you know.
No, I'm just saying there's been a culture of, it's not always been that players have always done what they're told.
That's been in every dressing room. But I think what's happened with Nico Raskin, and I think it has to be underlined that he is probably their best midfield player. Rangers are better with him in the team, and I think he will return to the Rangers team now. He's not moved on. I don't think that it benefits anyone if Nico Raskin is behind the scenes at Rangers or banished from the Rangers first team squad to train with kids and isn't allowed to be involved from now on. I don't see that happening. I think there will be a resolution between Russell Martin and the player. I think they will come to an understanding that that what has happened up until now hasn't been good for anyone. It's not been good for the team. It's not been good for the manager, and it's certainly not been good for Nico Raskin. One thing's massive in this, Bill. Nobody came in for Nico Raskin.
No, nobody came in for him. No.
You know, this is a guy who's got a high opinion of himself, and as I say, he's a good player. Nobody came in for him. Nobody looked at that situation at Rangers and said, "By the way, there's a Belgian international that we could get, probably on loan on the cheap. Let's go get him." And nobody came in for him. No. You know, I think it says a lot of things. I
think it's a very interesting signpost of where Russell Martin is going forward as to what happens with Nico Raskin. If he is able to rehabilitate his relationship with the boy, get him back in the team and the boy plays well and Rangers get better, you'll say, right, Russell Martin's taking a big step forward as Rangers manager. Yeah, if it rumbles on and
it's going to need compromise, Bill. It's going to need compromise on both sides. I think, as I wrote last week, that there's certain players behind the scenes at Rangers, senior players, who are unimpressed with what's been happening behind the scenes in terms of that relationship and the fault on both sides. And Russell Martin has been backed to a certain extent by those people, and that's why he felt empowered to make the decision he felt, because he felt backed by them, not just the players in the dressing room, but also the guys in the boardroom. But there has to be compromise, and I think Nico Raskin now would be foolish to be truculent about the whole thing. I think he has to...
Do you think his dad's helping? Putting statements out about Russell Martin?
No, absolutely not. But I don't think that's probably... It didn't help, but I don't think that's been the biggest issue. But I think there'll be a resolution there, and I think it will be a resolution that's beneficial to Rangers, to Nico Raskin and to Russell Martin. I think that has to happen. I've been very clear from the outset that there has to be change at Rangers, the culture, the mentality, and I think it would be foolish of Rangers to rip that up right now. I don't think they will do it. I think that's why Russell Martin has felt empowered, and that's why he has said what he's said. But there has to be a coming together there. Otherwise, Rangers will not move forward. There has to be. Russell Martin mentions it time and again about the buy-in. Right? What he wants to get going at Rangers only works if there's a buy-in of everyone. That has to be the board, that has to be the staff, that has to be the players, and he can't afford to have some toxic element into that dressing room. That has to be nipped in the bud. I think he's tried to do that, and I think if there is a resolution, it could be proved to be the right thing that's happened.
That's what I'm saying. It's a big signpost of how he rehabilitates and reintegrates Raskin in.
Because the Rangers fans at Ibrox on Sunday were singing Nico Raskin's name. They clearly aren't having Russell Martin to a certain extent so far, but I think they should get their heads around it. For me,
he's there. Yeah.
Now, I know results dictate how things work out for managers. If he loses the next few games, I'm sure the pressure would mount. But they've made signings, the transfer window's closed. The players who are there now know they are there now, so there's no point in them stamping their feet and moaning. Cyril Dessers, who we spoke about earlier on, he's gone. He wanted to go. He's got his move. Other players who've been moved on who wanted to go. You've got guys who maybe have been causing one or two issues behind the scenes who haven't gone. They need to buckle down now. There's no benefit for them or anyone else for them to still be problematic behind the scenes.
Here's the thing. Managers in any job don't need to like their workers.
No.
Co-workers
I
don't like you very much either. But co-workers don't need to like each other, but we need to. So I think there's an element of Russell Martin saying the buy-in. Great, magic. But see if it's a guy you don't like, you can't stand him. He's an absolute pain in the backside. But by the way, what a player. I would have him in the team. Now, the two best players Rangers had on Sunday were two guys that Russell Martin hasn't wanted to play. Just James Tavernier and Connor Barron.
Yeah.
They played the way Rangers needed to play on Sunday. They got ratted in and they battered in, and Tavernier's delivery was brilliant, and Barron was terrific about the park. And that's two guys that Russell Martin
100%, and he pointed
doesn't
that out.
want to play.
And he pointed that out.
Yeah.
You know, he absolutely. Listen, so James Tavernier especially, if you're the captain of Rangers and you've been, and the new manager's come in, and one of the first things he's done is sign a new right back who clearly isn't at the same level as James Tavernier. You know, but he's actually done something. Max Aarons has done something for James Tavernier that he probably didn't think was possible.
And made him popular again.
I mean, he's going to take corner kicks and he's getting.
But how many players have we known down the years who have become better players when they're out the team? You know, James Tavernier sits here going, if I sit here long enough, I'll be back in this team, and they'll realise what I bring to the team. And Connor Barron's exactly the same.
The clock's ticking. We're almost out of time here, but we need to pick up just before we go. A couple of minutes, Bill. Mark and Gaz behind the cameras here are probably itching to get back to their desk because they've been speaking too long. Scotland, I'm going away to Copenhagen this afternoon. I've got a flight there ahead of Scotland's.
Is it your Legoland trip booked?
Yeah, I'm going to Legoland. This is a huge week.
It's amazing how little MD's talking about.
Well, that's the thing. Genuinely, it's kind of crept up on us.
Massive for Steve Clarke, isn't it?
Denmark on Friday night. Belarus then in Hungary behind closed doors.
In an empty stadium on Monday.
Excuse me, deepest, darkest Hungary.
Yeah.
A huge week.
Name the town we're in?
It's a town in Hungary.
Oh, well done. Good, well done.
It's a town in Hungary. I can't pronounce it.
It's 342 points in Scrabble.
I tell you what, it's not Kazakhstan, so I'm going.
No, you're quite happy, I know.
Quite happy with that.
So it's the hardest game for us away to Denmark, first game. It's Steve Clarke's last hurrah when he wants to get to the World Cup. Just for goodness sake, after the week we had there in Europe, a strong start for Scotland would just lift everybody, wouldn't it?
Yeah, this is a big game. This is a huge big game.
Massive.
I think if you ask most Scotland fans, I don't think many of them hold out much hope of getting to the World Cup.
No.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
I think most of us are quite kind of pessimistic about the whole thing.
I would say for us to have a chance, okay, finish second, you're going to get a playoff, yeah? So I reckon to do that, we need to beat Denmark and Greece at home. We need to get a point off one of them away. We need to beat Belarus home and away.
Yeah.
And then see what happens between Denmark and Greece. But on recent form, Greece pulled their pants down at Hampden. Denmark beat us very convincingly over there the last time. We beat them once the group was basically done at Hampden after that. It's a really hard one to call.
I almost think we need to get something from this first game.
I think we do. I think, apart from anything else, to send us to Belarus, because in the old days and back in the sort of 10, 15 years ago, Craig Levein, Bertie Vogts, George Burley, we were 2 games into campaigns, we're saying, well, that's us done. We can't have that.
No.
We cannot have... After the amount of momentum we've built up over the last 2 Euros, and even to an extent getting to the playoff game in the World Cup before, we need Scotland to be in with a shout in this group.
Absolutely. I think we'll touch on it briefly. I think there's big decisions to be made team-wise.
Yeah.
We're both big fans of Kieran Bowie. I'm not sure he starts. Potentially, I think.
I'm not sure that's the way Steve does. He doesn't do players leaping over other players into the team. I think I would start Bowie.
Goalkeeper.
You. I think Xander Clark's...
That wasn't bad, by the way.
I know. Xander Clark's playing, but I still think Angus Gunn will be higher in Steve Clarke's priorities.
I'm going to make a prediction, right?
Yes.
Liam Kelly.
Oof.
I would not be surprised if Liam Kelly starts this first game.
Why?
Because I think Xander Clarke hasn't been playing well.
No, it wouldn't be Xander Clarke for me.
I don't think Xander Clarke... ironically, he is the one who's playing.
That's what I'm saying. But he's not playing well.
I don't think he's playing well. Hearts have just brought a new goalkeeper in. I think that's been playing on his mind. He's been lost a few soft goals of late.
And he lost one at the weekend.
Angus Gunn is third in the pecking order now at Forest. They signed another goalkeeper. I don't think he'll be in a particularly great place. I've just got a picture
of Liam Kelly plays?
No, I've just got a picture of Liam Kelly when the squad got together on Sunday night, bouncing into that squad. Happy-go-lucky, confident boy. He's not playing, but I've just got something in my mind that he'll maybe be the one in training this week.
Who impresses?
You go, okay. Well, this guy's not in a bad place because he's that kind of boy. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Time will tell.
Massive choice. Back 3 or back 4?
I go back 4.
Kieran Tierney?
No, Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney has not done enough to justify a place in the Scotland squad. In the Scotland team right now. He should be in the squad.
Andy Robertson plays?
I would play Andy Robertson, albeit he's not played. He didn't play for Liverpool the other day, did he?
But he's a captain.
He's a captain. I would go back 4. The Kieran Tierney situation.
Worrying, isn't it?
I touched on this at the start of the week. It's fast becoming a real topic of conversation for me. A guy who's brought back to Celtic. On the face of it, a fantastic signing. Well, everyone who watches Scotland loves Kieran Tierney's attitude. The way he is as a player, the way he is as a boy.
He's a proper footballer.
He's a proper boy, right? He's a great lad.
But it's not happening for him,
but there's something not right there.
Do you think he's holding himself back a little bit in case it goes again?
I don't know. You just watch him almost every tackle he gets into. He almost takes that extra couple of seconds to get back to his feet, almost as if he's worried or concerned that there's something there.
There was a moment in the Old Firm game where I think it was Gassama squared him up down the right in the second half.
I know, it's just the way he turned.
And the way he turned, he kind of lost his balance, and then he tried to get the shoulder into Gassama and didn't have the kind of strength to knock him over. Yeah. And that worried me a little bit when he got faced up. Yeah,
but that would be a massive decision for Steve Clarke to make. Yeah. Actually, we've been saying this, and it's become almost a boring topic of conversation, the Kieran Tierney, Andy Robertson thing, but I've been saying, my opinion down the years is pick one of them.
Yeah.
You know, we shoehorned the two of them into the team just to get them in the team.
And it worked for a while.
It worked for a certain extent for a while, but I don't know. I think a back 4, I think a 4-2-3-1 system would be the way to go. But time will tell. Listen, we'll maybe talk.
Have a safe trip.
We'll talk more about this. I'm heading to the airport shortly to go to Copenhagen.
And then on to that town in Hungary.
Then I'm off to then I'm off to Hungary. Looking forward to it. Yeah, a lot going on this week. I say that's the transfer window closed. A lot happening at both clubs, other clubs as well. We didn't get a chance or time to speak about them. We'll do a bit more on other teams next week. In fact, no, you'll be doing it with Roger next week. I'm away.
Oh. So you're not back in time?
No, in fact, I will be here.
You'll be back in time.
Of course you will. I will be back. So we'll be talking about other teams next week ahead of the start. The
real football coming back.
Yeah, the Premiership stuff kicking off. Let us know as ever what you think of everything that's been going on. If you're an unhappy Celtic fan, let us know in the comments section below whether Bill is talking nonsense or not. Rangers fans,
those are two separate arguments.
Rangers fans as well, whatever you think of Chermiti Again, let us know if you think Bill's talking nonsense. And anyone else, let us know in the context, the comment section below.
And like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe to the channel. And that's us.
You know what he's trying to say, don't you, people?
And that's us for this week's edition
of the set piece.
Of the set piece.